Welcome back, everyone. The Antiques Roadshow meets Blade Runner, your one-of-a-kind show, back on January 27th, 2023. This is Artist Journal. This is Adrian Pocobelli's Artist Journal. This is not a news show. It is not a news show. It's literally my journal, my Artist Journal. Once in a while, I talk about my art in my Artist Journal, but here and there, I mean, there's so much going on, like we see here. I mean, I leave my Tezos wallet empty too often, and then I'm just scrambling because another, masterpiece has showed up on my door, has crossed my desk over here. So anyways, Sabato with another stunner, a cathedral, and actually the write-up was awesome here. Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome back. I'm trying to shorten these episodes a little bit. So first, cathedral. It is just a facade. I love that. It is just a facade. Created in Deluxe Paint 4 and an Amiga emulated Amiga A1200 computer. Part of the Chrome period drawing series. So anyways, just a gorgeous, gorgeous work. Again, I scrambled to get one. Luckily, my offer was taken for 15, but I mean, edition of 40. So not a small edition, right? I mean, and sold out for 9, and there are a few left, of course, but not really. Only on secondary, and yeah, I bought mine for 15, 8 so in there. Web links, it's the whole scene over here. It's the gang, Dr. Version, Islay. So anyways, we're having a ton of fun over here as per usual with some wonderful, wonderful art. I mean, I don't know if much needs to be said here. It's just beautiful. It's just a facade. So enough said, as Stan Lee would say. Continuing on, what is up? So Flora Marquez, she has put a really great comment here, which I wanted to share. Again, another comment. I like the phrase creating the habit from one of your older videos. So Flora is watching some of the older videos. So thank you for that. And thank you for the patience on the older videos, and decided to put it in today's drawing. This is what I wanted to highlight, and decided to put it into today's drawing, creating the habit. I think that you've created a great habit here. I'm really enjoying it. Aristotle, I never planned on saying this. I think it was Aristotle, or basically, kind of a classical ethics to a certain degree is you are your habits. And, I think that's been picked up over time by the, what I call the success philosophers in the 20th century. I never expected to go in this direction, but we're talking about habits here. What I consider actually a branch of American pragmatism, in pragmatism, common sense philosophy, and Americans, at least in the early 20th century, were known for their pragmatic philosophy. William James and more other philosophers that I don't really know that much about. But there's a whole branch of success philosophy and the whole coaching, Brian Tracy and all that. And if anybody's ever depressed and feels like their life is going out of control, as we're going to see in one piece later here, Brian Tracy, I highly recommend. Anyways, habits, the power of habit, as they say, creating the habit. So I brought up her piece. Habits are small actions sustained over time. At the beginning, they may seem difficult or even forced, but when we realize it, suddenly we are missing them, or even not feeling the same, when we don't do them. So true. Again, kind of back to this idea, not feeling the same when we don't do them. You are your habits. So kind of interesting. I brought up the piece because why not? Creating the habit. And I think we looked at this yesterday. And it turns out this was kind of based on something we were saying in the show way back when. And it's kind of nice to have this stuff as a record because it's nice to keep a video journal because I don't remember like 90% of what I say. And this is news to me. If you told me, had I said that, I probably would have said, no, I didn't say that. So anyways, so super interesting. Thank you, Flora. That's super awesome. And a couple of more just things I wanted to note here. Vito is experimenting with digital painting and having a ton of fun. That is interesting. 8so So he had the CRT TVs from yesterday, which were looking great. Glad you dug the work in progress shot. I'm thinking of doing a studio tour video soon, since people seem to be interested. And I would say absolutely, so I think, and I'd be happy to show it here if it's not too long. And also, there was one, this was hilarious. Felix Lependre weighs in, and great to hear from you, Felix. And I brought up a few works of his, actually, for this episode. I use the mosaic filter every day, too. Okay, so someone else is using almost what I want to call the outrageous, also legendary, well-known, what is the word for that? Not infamous, I guess we could use infamous, mosaic filter. The infamous mosaic filter is also being used by Felix Lependre. So the fun continues over here, continuing on. Okay, so thank you, Flora. That's super rad. Just kind of a tweet from Farouk, who, of course, is Rug Radio and prominent personality in the space. He was tweeting out, all the manifold open editions and these memes by 6529, De Medici, the Meebs, OX Babylon, a lot of stuff which I've kind of actually missed. But this is what I wanted to highlight. Art is at the left, right, front, and center of the NFT space right now, and I'm here for it. And I totally agree with this right here. Art is and I think it's been true for a lot of this bear market. Like, as I was sort of saying in 15 or so episodes ago, and I've kind of said, here and there, digital art seems to be one of the main use cases for crypto. And I just think, and Farouk, is kind of on the scene looking at the big picture here. And so for him to be saying this, it's quite interesting because we're kind of neck deep in the art over here. And it's kind of like, do the math. Like, what are the implications of that? And it's kind of fun to think about, so just all to say this scene is still hot, shall we say, despite any kind of financial situation, good or bad. Tezos has come back somewhat, not really. And, the markets, people are cheering on a new bull market, which feels a little premature over here, but not financial advice, and who knows. And let's just finish the tweet here. This space was built on the back of crypto art. Let's not forget that, or where it all started. So interesting thought. I didn't actually realize. I guess he's talking about the NFT space, not crypto. And I suppose that is true. And the whole, I guess, crypto kitties. I mean, you guys know the history better than I do of I'm just kind of wowed and amazed by the art that I see. And so I talk about it here and slowly cover the history through my own perceptions of what's going on here. Anyways, continuing on, Charles AI, just with kind of a provocative in a fun way kind of tweet, AI art is a widely different new medium, so why should we sell it like trad art? And then so most people don't know what he's talking about, but it seems like he's got an idea. The idea I have in mind is mostly applicable to AI art and photography. So anyways, Charles AI is thinking of new ways of selling AI art. So that's just kind of fun, interesting to think about. So I thought I'd share it there. And Rare, I'm still, and we're going to look at some physical art here, just a little bit, just for comparison here of what's going on out here. So Rare posts this Sorayama edition of 25, which is selling for $5,000. And so just, contrast is everything in a lot of ways. And, whether it's in art or whatever the case is. And I think it's really great for us to contrast physical art and that market as well, which we love to talk about here, with what's going on in the physical and digital market, comparing and contrasting a little bit. We don't need to do it a ton, but a little bit is a fun thing to do, and I think very kind of useful. Again, contrast. So Sorayama edition of 25 for 5,000. Maybe I'll grab one for my boss mentor. So anyways, interesting, right? And I've barely heard of this artist, actually. The image is familiar to me, although not the name, actually. But obviously a prominent artist if an edition of 25 is selling for 5,000. But you just start to see the comparison. We deal with editions at 25 here all the time. So I went to Artsy, which is a nice place to get see what's going on, get the pulse of the physical art market, because galleries can post their work here and sell their work in a credible way online. And it's probably, I think it's the main art marketplace online that's not Sotheby's or Christie's, where you can just kind of shop. Look, so I was showing, I like Wade Guyton, for example, for physical art. So I could go and buy this at 700 euros. Okay. Epson Durabright inkjet on letterhead. And it looks like it's maybe, are they A4s? Yeah, I think they're basically 4 A4s here. Get a set of Wade Guyton for 700 euros. Now, these are just basically, it looks like he's using letterhead here, right? The May looks like a calendar type letterhead. So something that's pre-printed that you buy and it has the month of the year. And then he puts that into the printer and then prints the New York Times on top of that. So pretty cool solution is what I would call that. A very cool solution here from Wade Guyton because, I'm sure many artists, including myself, have thought, well, how do you turn the New York Times into art? The screenshot of the New York Times into art, and everybody has their own solutions. What I like about this solution is how simple it is. Now, anyway, my point in covering this is I just want us to get a little taste of the physical art market here. So here's David Hockney. And what's interesting is if you look, lithographs are basically the affordable way that you can get a David Hockney on your wall. So lithograph printed in colors on newsprint, right? So 1,250, a bounce for Bradford from 1987. So, we're going on 35 years old here, surprisingly. So 1,250 pounds, and you can just purchase it right here. I don't know if it's framed. It's a nice looking frame. A simple frame. And there you have a Hockney from 1987. And I don't know if it's an edition, if it's a, edition of 200 or something. Here it just says lithograph printed in colors on newsprint. But again, a nice solution. Okay, let's do a lithograph on newsprint. And you could probably still do that, right? And I just finally brought up here Magritte. And it's really interesting to compare these prices, isn't it? So here you can get a René Magritte, Le Trahison des Images, the treachery of images. And as as longtime viewers will remember, with Magritte, the title is a part of the work. So if you ever kind of go to an art show and there's a Magritte with no title card or there's no way to know the title, you're not getting the full art piece. He was a very literary artist, as many of the Surrealists were. And the Surrealists were very much a literary as much as an artistic tradition. So here he is working with text, one of the classics of what you might call conceptual art, Ceci n'est pas une pipe. And of course, here's a pipe, but it's not a pipe. Anyway, the moral of the story is you can get a lithograph, and this is from 2010. So what is that about? So I don't know what to make of that. 690 euros. How does that work? 2010, but it looks like it's signed. I don't know what's going on there. This is also from 2010, but it looks like it's signed. So I don't know what they're up to there. Includes a certificate of authenticity. So, be careful. I'd also say, I don't know what that means. Here is this is interesting. This is an etching. And then I'm going to run through 1952. Okay. 500 euros, edition of 950, and actually a pretty original, I've never seen that Magritte, and it's a, actual Magritte etching. So anyways, I just want us to contrast that because I think it's very beneficial for us as we continue to expand our discussion here, our synoptic discussion. Okay, so continuing into the art here, we have Luis Ponce, and who we looked at, who, if you look at on Object, and look, he's sold on Christie's, on Super Rare, his market is very strong. And so one of these artists I kind of recently discovered by doing this show, and anyways, he posted a work that I thought was pretty head-turning here. And so it almost looks like collage here that's, but I don't know how he actually does that. Or maybe it's video that's mixed. So he's mixing a lot of different styles here and all into one canvas. So anyways, he posted this. I thought, very cool. Fragmented Existence number 20 is now displayed as part of the digital canvas show. So just interesting for us in passing here. And here's another We looked at CTZN just the other day, and he kind of has these like sci-fi, almost Blade Runner type offices here. And I don't know if I mentioned this before. It's like this show for me is almost like Antiques Roadshow meets Blade Runner. That's what I joke to myself. And anyways, there's kind of a Blade Runner vibe here. And yeah, just kind of another interesting kind of artist as we go in passing here. So and we were looking at CTZN's like an alternative work just the other day, another work. So it's just kind of interesting to give us a little more context. A new one from Lulan New. This was minted January 26th, and we remember them from their awesome Christmas work that they had, and the style is instantly recognizable. So here's a new one on Super Rare. What is this called? Exploration. Very interesting selling mechanism. So they put the auction, like I wonder if I put in a 0.1, there seems to be no reserve here. So like if I sneak in an hour and 26 minutes with 0.01 ETH and nobody bids, and nobody notices, do I get to keep that? I don't know. Maybe I should do that. I would feel kind of bad though. Anyways, interesting to start the auction though without the reserve to kick it off. Very interesting. Exploration. We were also looking at DeCracy Jeffrey recently as well. Still exploring the future of AI. If you watch this loop 5 or 6 times, you might stay stuck for a while then. So here we go, and he's the guy who made that massive sale, like $10,000 for the earthquake. So just kind of interesting. You know, this experimentation, kind of like animation with, the equivalent of a Boston Dynamics dog, not quite, going into an elevator, kind of getting stuck. So just interesting. Continuing on, a new one from AX Stone, and we know AX Stone, we've looked at them before. We've looked at her work before. Let me just dig it up here. Celine Sinar, and remember these works? And we're looking, so she's put out some black and white ones here. This color in black and white is particularly striking over here. That sold, see, for 2.5 ETH. Interesting. So she's trying just a straight up black and white with a reserve of 2.5. Anyway, I thought it was an interesting looking work here. Wait for you. And it almost, again, this stuff really lends itself back to the physical conversation. Like this would be extremely easy to screen print. And you could probably also just, I don't know, image transfer. Like sometimes with lithography, for example, you can do image transfer. Maybe this could just act as an etching. Yeah, I just toyed with lithography. I don't know how to do image transfer. You can kind of do it. I need to I've asked lithography people and I still can't really get a straight answer. If anybody knows, feel free to leave a comment. Anyways, nice work. Pretty high resolution here too. Continuing on. And this is just another kind of, tip. So how did I come across Axstone's profile again? We looked like maybe 6 weeks ago. Why am I on Axstone's or her profile again? And the reason is because she put out this tweet with this really cool looking gun that's made of flowers and snakes and whatever else, soldiers, toy soldiers, a knife. So she put out this interesting tweet and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I go and explore. And I'm like, oh, super rare. And then I go, oh, I've seen her work before. So I think this is for lack of a better term, the funnel of the collector, and so it really is worth our while. And I am speaking to myself maybe more than anybody on this. It's really worth our while to post our art, even when it's already owned and it's not just when you mint it, which is generally what I do. And that's not enough. Like, look at how well it's worked for Axstone as far as, okay, I go check it out, and now some guy on YouTube is talking about her. Why? Because she did this. So, word to the wise. Continuing on, Antonio Loves, very prolific here, with a new work, Seraphim, Angel Saint Prophets, and it's looking really good here. Now, these are digital drawings, right? I mean, they definitely have a physical texture feel to them, but they are, in fact, digital, and you can even see there's almost like a paper texture underneath. Anyways, they look great, And they continue to do well. PNG 4000 by 4000 edition of 7. I think he's taking offers. I might have loaded this yesterday. Or lists today. Yeah, so there may be more offers than are showed right here. Anyways, I think he takes offers at, oh yeah, here they are. Accepted at 20, 19, 1777. I think 1777 are the authors, so are the offer price that are accepted. So 7 times 17, we love to do the math on, we love to do the financials here. I mean, again, 120 and then times 1.1 is like Tezos, $1.10. So you're looking at like maybe $140 for your art. And Antonio Loves is pretty new. We saw him mint the first work on this platform, which did very well, by the way, like a month ago, maybe 6 weeks max. The Paper Crane with a new work, buy for 162, huge kind of following here. Sale for 115, 125, 135. You know what's kind of interesting about Paper Crane? I always thought that kind of Louis Osborne. They're kind of like Louis Osborne. I mean, they collaborated with Louis Osborne from a market perspective, not an artistic perspective. I mean, they've collaborated, and I would both categorize them under what I'd call illustration, maybe Louis Osborne animated illustration, if you wanted to kind of parse it out. So they do hang well together. Mental block number 12. But Paper Crane is doing very, very well here. And again, maybe it's part of the reason could be that I'm sure there's many, but that FX hash that they've done one or two, and that really does tend to open you up to a new audience for whatever reason. Maybe it's all the generative art people out there, and there are a lot. And maybe as far as crossover between contemporary art and the NFT scene, a lot of it does seem to happen in the generative art area, like where contemporary art collectors are going, they really like the generative art, so just kind of interesting dynamics there potentially. Again, I'm just speculating here, so feel free to disagree or leave a comment. Anyway, cool work, kind of like a Snakes and Ladders vibe to it. And yeah, so just beautiful colors too, as usual. Interesting collaboration here from Santiago and Actress. So another challenging work, I would say, and just original and challenging. Like, I like the boldness that I see in a lot of the artists to put out, like just kind of experimental work that it's aesthetically challenging. At first, you're not sure, but then the more you look at it, you go, well, it kind of becomes like a scientific exploration of sorts. Qualitative science. We're kind of back to, pataphysics here. I mean, this kind of exploration, this is not a quantitative exploration, okay? This is what I call qualitative science. It's science not based on number, but science in the kind of old sense of the term, knowledge that's being developed, but qualitatively. Okay, what happens when we do this experiment, and then can we make it aesthetically interesting? What is that? Does that stretch? Does it work? Is it beautiful? And then we start to learn from that, and that in itself has value. And it is interesting. First collab, Actress Santiago. So anyways, very interesting. Here's more challenging work from Yuri J. Now, he released this a few days ago, but it's going to auction. And I don't think I showed this one. I showed another one. He has a few of these kind of noisy works here. And this is at auction for 30. And look at this, 6 hours to go, 0 bids. So you could get a Yuri J, a super rare artist who does a lot of really interesting experimentation for $33 or something, on super rare if nobody else bids. So one of one. That's pretty cool. Ed Marola, edition of 3, amazing colors. So more mystifying work from Ed Marola, but it's all beautiful and it's always interesting, isn't it? So amazing colors, a mystifying title, strange, just kind of hand-drawn perspective from the looks of it here. Again, remember what we were seeing in the profile pictures, the human kernel, just human kernel, where he would take an area, I think it's a he, but I'm not positive, where human kernel takes an area and then just fills it with a pattern and an experiment. And we kind of see a little bit of that here. So anyways, very interesting, and a figure in a landscape and with fish in the sky, reminiscent of Max Ernst's Elephant Celebs. You want to see a famous fish in the sky artwork? We'll show you in a second here. And then this interesting experimentation that he's playing with this brush over here, and of course the dithering. Let's just look at Elephant Célèbre by Ernst. This is a classic Ernst, which is why I bring it up. And you might not see it at first. There, you can see it. Let me see if I can make this bigger here. So you see up here, it's a little dark. See these fish in the sky? This is a famous example of that motif, shall we say. And here you can see the influence of de Chirico. All right, this is early Max Ernst here. And of course, here's the big elephant machine. And this is just wonderful here, this kind of headless torso with a line going through it. And so all the genius of Max Ernst on display very early on. I think this is like 1921. Yeah, you can see it right here, 1921. So yeah, this is a classic, so I'm happy to show this. Look at that. Celeb, and he puts the title in there kind of quietly. Again, you got this kind of de Chirico influence, right? Who I used to call de Chirico. So I've been told. Continuing on, François Gamma. Interesting, always, back to this idea of qualitative science. The exploration continues with François Gamma, which I think ultimately gives this scene credibility, right? I mean, these kinds of experiments, François Gamma exploring movement and the human body from about 1 billion different directions, and that's it. Okay, super interesting. And here's just another, variation. Okay, and quite beautiful. I like the color choice too, just on a purely aesthetic level. Edition of 20 for 3, kind of a mysterious title, KIB. So a few left there, and I think François lists on Versum still, which is pretty cool. I should list something on Versum. I actually have a series I listed on Versum. Maybe I'll go back to that. So side boob here. So Naughty Fox Lab. I picked this up. They're small edition, and again, kind of playing with the human form. I'm kind of a big fan of this contrast, as viewers will know, of nature and pixels. It just goes very well, again, to say, once again, this contrast between curvilinear organic form and this kind of rectilinear technological digital structures, pixels. That natural contrast is so strong that you pick anything in nature and you turn it into pixel art, it tends to do fairly well. And these guys are doing really nice jobs. And I really like how I'm a big fan of stamps too. That was like the first thing I collected when I was like 6. And so anyways, 11 colors, 30 by 40 by 3, which is kind of interesting. And here is more from Naughty Fox Lab. So I just gave them a follow. I'm not sure, I can't remember whose feed I found their work in. I actually just picked up the Genesis work there too. I just think it's interesting, a little edgy. More pixel art. So check this out. Cat Tarot. Like, are you having fun yet? Now, this seems to be loosely based on I think we call it the Rider Tarot deck, and animated, the Fool. And it's quite beautiful, the colors here, and turning it into a cat. I mean, there's a lot of work that's gone in here, and it's pretty cool. And we have a few of them. So I hope they do the whole thing. I mean, it's a titanic job. But this is the kind of thing that after you pass away, that people will remember you by. Okay? Like, it's like, that's the person that did the cat tarot. Like this, this kind of feels instantly famous in my kind of private universe here. This is already something I'll never forget. So it's really nicely done. It's very cool. It's fun. The Magician. So we have a few more here. The High Priestess. I think they're all still available. I might pick, this isn't available. But most of these, like, you can still get, there's like one, Again, the liquidity of the flippers sometimes are helpful. The Empress, like, look at how beautiful this is. And you wonder, and we're looking, this is another kind of interesting thing. It's interesting. This one, the third one, almost looks slightly more evolved than the first, and this is a natural thing. And I love the first. Don't get me wrong. That's where I started here. But the third is particularly gorgeous, I'd say. And you know what that reminds me of? And I don't want to take too long here. But Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel. Here's another kind of Sistine Chapel story for you here, which is very kind of back to the pragmatics of making art. And hopefully we can find a big enough view. I'm not sure we're going to be able to do this. Let me just see. This is 1290. Let's just look. Another kind of story for you here. So the creation, or wait, this very first one, if I remember, maybe I'm not going to remember the story right, but what I remember is the first ones that he did, I think it was this one, that he made them, the first ones were not, put it this way, I'll tell you the story. The first one that he did of this fresco here, of the Sistine Chapel, maybe it was this one, the creation of the universe here, separating the light from the dark. Basically, it's not as well viewed from the bottom when you look at from the floor and you look up at the ceiling. It's not as well, you can't see it that well. So Michelangelo was like, oh, I need to make these bigger, right? And so I'm going to look that up to get us the exact thing. But basically, over the course of him painting this, he makes it more bigger so that in terms of the composition, so more kind of legible and viewable from the floor. So he goes all the way up, he paints it, he comes down and he goes, oh, I need to make an adjustment here. So that's, to make a very stretched analogy here, but we see this throughout, artist development. If they do a series, often we'll see them evolve through that series, the pragmatics of making art. So continuing on, Slave Angel, Flipper Ride. So Slave Angel has been quite productive here with the manifolds and everything, and seems to be doing quite well on the periphery here. 1-bit GIF by Slave Angel 2023, and they sell out again. Let's look at the market here. Sale 11. So these used to be like 3 or 4 not that long ago. Selling out at 11, editions of 30, 330 Tezos, thank you. So again, real money. This is another one that could probably hang in the same room. Kareem Safa, 125 frames, 2 colors, kind of a 1-bit piece, and this is called Dunes, is a 4-piece series of 16 by 9 1-bit animations that interprets the dynamic transformations of dune fields. So interesting. Right? So again, nature and pixels, a wonderful combination. Continuing on, Native Ed was kind of an edgy work that maybe speaks a little bit to the culture of our scene over here, the digital art scene, the NFT digital art scene. Secret Vault Place, Ledger Nano isn't enough anymore. So these are, of course, the cold wallet storage. And so here are your gifts being stored. And maybe this 666 is the evil, and maybe these are your gifts being siphoned out of your wallet. Interesting. So hopefully Native Ed hasn't, nothing bad has happened to Native Ed. So anyways, be careful out there, though. Moral of the story. Very interesting. And Popple with a new, what I want to call monster from the Sanitarium series, Lurcher of Sludge. With eyes that gleam in the darkest night, the creature scours the sludge for treasures bright. Lost gems and gold it will not miss, for in the muck it finds its bliss. I'm not a big poetry guy. As J.G. Ballard says, there's nothing more, and nothing against poetry. But this is pretty good, is actually what I was going to say. This is pretty good. So anyways, yeah. So Popple. Edition of 25, still available for 9. Interesting. I love this series. And again, pretty high quality writing from my perspective over here. KHC, how are we doing for time here? 35. All right, we're going to speed up a bit here. KHC, Kurt Hustle Collective. I don't trust like that. With a mysterious work. Love the music. Could be a hotel lobby, really nice, like Ritz-Carlton. You go on, really nice music. That's what it reminds me of. It's like the elevator music in the Ritz, which I haven't been in the elevator at the Ritz for 10 years, but yeah, that's the kind of music I remember. Very luxurious. I Don't Trust Like That. So interesting piece, Mysterious, from Kurt Hustle Collective, kind of an older dude here. Get off my lawn kind of dude. Corrupt ROM from Glitch David. So this is very experimental. Check this out. Super experimental. Wild. Chaos. It's absolute chaos from Glitch David. Buy for 1 edition of 5. So you can get it for a song here. It's almost free. And here are all the games in it. So wild. Again, the Glitch ROM, it's fascinating to see the different experiments with it. Ricano. So shout out to Ricano. Hang in there. If you see him, call 911. Change life. Email me. Ricano 1991 to infinity. So this is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Sales 0. Exhibition 0. So anyways, hang in there, Ricano. It's all part of the journey. We've all been there, so just hang in there. Change life email. One thing I'd like to say, though, is I do love this theme, which we saw also with Trésor Rodin's, the failed artist theme, because it speaks to a true kind of situation, and kind of all artists at one time or another are failed artists, okay? It's not like you start making art and the world loves you and buys your art right away. Most of us, for a good portion of our so-called careers are, in that situation. So hang in there. It's part of the journey, and hilarious work, actually, in a good way, Future Chair by Tezos. So these beautiful, beautiful, beautiful works by Tezos. This is a huge edition of 333, so you can get it for like 2 Tezos. I'm all over. And of course, we were talking about Tezos in the intro here with the studio. Potential studio tour. I'd love to see that. I think it would just be super cool too. And he's out in Montreal, I believe, somewhere I lived for a few years. This desk looks great too. So beautiful, beautiful glitch work. Future Desk, great title, great color, just all of it. The dresser. I love the concept. Here you see a little more texture here. Beautiful, beautiful color. So there's a lot to kind of latch onto here from both a conceptual and an aesthetic level, right? Future Dresser too. And what this title reminds me of is, that famous pop art work by, his name is escaping me, Richard, what is it? Tomorrow's famous pop art collage. It's like the guy who started pop art almost. Tomorrow's, and then we'll put Tomorrow's, those Google. Here, let's just quickly. Richard, let me just quickly, otherwise we'll have to come back to it tomorrow. Here we go. This is Richard Hamilton, of course. Just see the title? Like, to me, there's an oblique, it feels the same. Just what is it that makes today's home so different, so appealing? And this collage is kind of seen as very much, it's in all pop art, anthologies, you'll find this at the start, pretty much, 1956. Richard Hamilton, who is a fantastic artist with this great, iconic collage here. Tomorrow's Modern Home Furnishings, it just echoes that in my mind. Anyways, we got to move on. House of the Model with a new track here, Little Dreams in the Armani Sky. Let's just play a little bit. Again, continuing with the super uber cool kind of 90s vibe. What are we doing? Nice glitch work here. There we go. So, again, it just speaks to the culture out here in our digital art scene. I mean, it's pretty cool. Here's some new music. I mean, again, and I think House of the Model is also working on a player. It's like, when can we DJ these things? It's coming. I think it's coming. So, pretty cool. Little Dreams in the Armani Sky. I think that's, oh, this got burned, so hopefully he's okay with me sharing this. We're deep into the video, so there might be a new version of this available. This was just kind of a cool, I think it's generative art. This is by Matt Dezel, and he's on, artist, and here it is. So I thought this was just kind of interesting. I think I went to his page. It's pretty busy. He's got a lot going on. It looks like there's a book exhibited with, looks like there's a lot going on with Matt Deslauriers here. Yeah, you see, this is what I was, so I'm not sure if we've looked at his work before, but I thought it looked pretty good. Maybe we have. So just kind of interesting. And continuing on, zooming through this, Eduardo Crivellari, Confused Bookshelf, and I think he's a generative artist as well. Yes, generative artist from Brazil, has works on ETH and Sol. Pretty interesting, good-looking kind of work, isn't it? Again, it looks like physical, right? This looks like a Riso print or something. Riso, for those that don't know, is basically a really cheap way to kind of do screen printing equivalent. It uses photocopiers. It's actually trickier than it looks. But it's, there's probably a Riso printer in your neighborhood, and it's fun to experiment with if you're delving into the physical. Check this out. So this is a collaboration between Marubu and, where is the name of the other artist here? John Roos. Now, John Roos is a physical artist from my understanding, and he was doing the physical NFTs that kind of look like Francis Bacon-esque a little bit, and so he's collaborating. I thought this was a really interesting collaboration here on Foundation with Marubu. And I guess Marubu is putting in the digital stuff on top. Just kind of interesting and pretty good looking. Nice work. And this is one that just came out. So again, they've put out a whole series here. And just kind of interesting, isn't it? 0.45 reserve. And continuing on, so here's, I was going to show you some Félix Lepindres, so I'll quickly show you this. Here are just some interesting, I think this is human times machine times AI, so almost like a ticket, right? And the Mickey Mouse is, for lack of a better term, just kind of, well, let's just call it eviscerated. I was going to call it deconstructed there, but let's call it eviscerated. That's more, or just kind of blown apart. Human times machine times AI, available, edition of 1 for 10, and there's several of them. And so he was pretty cool experimentation, so shout out to Felix there. 1 of 1 for 10, these are all available. 1 of 1 for 10. So just kind of, I like how he uses the ticket too, and I wonder if the UPC, or not the UPC, the QR code there works. So anyways, interesting work. And here's another one by Félix Lepindres, pretty nice, from only a month ago, AI work, Acid at the Gucci store. I thought this was a pretty nice work, and so very interesting here. I'm not sure which AI he's using there, but very interesting. Continuing on the AI front, everything comes closer from Yoain, so he's got a new work, and it's already bid on, and there's only 6.5 hours left here. So 0.22 ETH. So it continues with Yoain, and it's looking really good. Again, interesting development of more volume and more color from those earlier object, or the work we saw on Object, and I think on Foundation as well. Here's another artist that I'm not sure we've looked at, Power Job, and this also, I believe, is AI. It's hard to find the details on if it was AI, but you look at these shapes and you go, this is definitely AI. So interesting work, right? You wonder if this is 2 AI layers put together, like if this black is put on top, or if they were able to get this from a prompt. Back to our prompt engineers here. The Catcher in the Rye, a classic of American literature. Although a lot of English professors are skeptical on The Catcher in the Rye. I haven't read it for 20 years, so maybe 30 years. Not quite, maybe 25 years. I was probably 20. I'm 43, by the way. Ilya Blizhnets. And I believe Ilya is a he, and so again, combining painting and AI. So interesting experimentation over here. What is the title of this work? In Effect, State, AI, and Digital Painting, edition of 15, buy for 4, and there are 6 left. And another one from Kone Jitude, who's having a great start to the year. I saw the tweet out there, Kone. And yeah, it's looking really good. And so here you are again, 2-4. And interesting, so clearly AI here. And so Kone Jitude is doing great. I think displaying with Super Chief. Now, MCHX, who did those works that look like Rothko, like kind of dynamic Rothkos, also has some digital art here. AO1, they have a new series. And this is AI, okay? AI, experimental digital art, machine learning, digital color field. So AI abstraction, interesting. Buy for 15, edition of 1, okay? And you see, you can get all 4, at least at the time of this broadcast. For 60, you could get this artificial intelligence abstract series. Pretty good. Here's another one. So interesting AI abstraction. I'm sure we'll see more of that. Now, this is digital painting, I guess I'd categorize it as. It's a digital artwork on the M&M show. And this is by Walk, of course. And this is a digital artwork using his kind of noisified, blurred out M&M cover. And I think if we do a quick search here, you'll see the reference for those. I had to actually look this up. I've heard of this, and of course, when you see it, it's familiar. So anyways, it's based on that. So interesting. It's always a challenge with Walk to find the source. And Ian Curtis here is back. The future of the web looks different. So here's a web AR experiment I wanted to show us because we're into visual culture out here. I thought this was pretty interesting. You see, it's almost like this should be a Sky Goodman Impossible shoe coming out of the AR here. So just kind of interesting video, isn't it? I guess this is theoretically through the glasses of AR. So just to keep us on top of things here, I thought that looked pretty interesting. And finally, some physical work here. Quilanina, again, playing with the tarot theme. And here it looks like a play on the Hangman, also from the Rider Tarot deck. And here's number 12, and this is a painting. So very cool. Contemplation, acrylic, oil, and glitter on canvas, inspired on the tarot card, the Hanged Man. And here is Quilanina's, again, you see, kind of like, for those that are maybe newer to the channel, kind of like a visionary. I'd put her almost in the visionary category. There's kind of like visionary artists, kind of psychedelic artists. I think she's out of Peru, from Argentina, Peru. Kind of really reminiscent, especially here, of like those ayahuasca paintings you'll see. We can look at those in another episode, but we're starting to run long here, so let's continue. So here's a guy who I really like. I've probably shown his work before, Steven Schwarzer. He's in the contemporary art scene, and I just think his work is beautiful. I think he's in Germany, actually. I'm not positive on that. But just a really nice, these looks like colored pencils on paper. He calls it Polychromos auf Papier, so that looks pretty German to me. And here's some just more of his work. You see, not a ton of followers, but he's with good, but enough, and with galleries like him. So he's actually had a good couple of years, really deservedly. His work is beautiful and interesting, Here's one he just posted here. And he's doing a lot of experimentation too, which I think is cool as well. He's not just sticking to, okay, I make nice, textured kind of drawings. There's a lot of experimentation, and it's the sense of color also that's kind of, color is the magic in painting oftentimes. It's kind of like the great kind of, we'll just call it that, the magic in painting. Thanks everyone for joining me. I hope you have a great weekend. Until next time, take care.